Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this Lunch and Learn. It is November the 10th. Today we are going to go over the GED calculator. I know we call it the GED calculator, but honestly, this is probably going to be more important than any specific calculator that your students are going to be using. However, the TI-30XS brought to us from the great state of Texas uh, is a good calculator just in of itself. It's small, it's simple, it does not have a lot of stuff that your students are not going to need. However, as Phil from Disney's Hercules is oftentimes quoted as saying, a warrior is only as great as his sword. And so a daunting task for many of our students isn't the learning of the math, but the learning of the calculator that they're expected to wield for quite possibly the most important test of their lives. And so we've invited our neighbor from the great cold northern shores. He is the director of Campbell County Adult Education. This is Stephen Schreck. Everybody, I'm going to be dropping some links in the chat. Please click on them and have them open that we can follow along. But without further ado, Stephen, take it away.
Well, thank you, James, for that wonderful introduction and analogy there with the sword, and that's good stuff. That gets me pumped up. So yes, as James said, my name is Stephen. I'm the director here in Newport. I have a math background though. I come from teaching high school math before adult ed years and years ago, and then I taught math GED for a long time before becoming director. And yeah, so what I'm going to be sharing today is is the fruit of basically sitting with the calculator and looking at it and saying, okay, I only use like, you know, 12 of these buttons. And there's a lot of buttons on here. What can this thing do? And that's kind of where what the premise was. And I sat down, I tried some things, and lo and behold, you can do a lot of stuff with this calculator. Things that I don't even know if GED is aware of. But you know what? As James said, we're going to wield our tools that they give us and use them to our advantage. So what you can expect today is to learn how to leverage the calculator. I think you'll learn how this could be a great tool for busting out or for bursting beyond the 144s. If and Also, you're going to be getting a lot of examples today. If you haven't already, I would recommend having your own GED calculator handy, TI-30XS, or as you'll see here in a slide in a moment, there's a link that you can go to get exactly what I have on the right side of my screen. Okay, so two questions to start us off. The Math GED has approximately 45 questions. It's not exact, but it's approximately 45 questions. How many of them are calculator questions? How many of the 45 questions are calculator questions? Well, some of you may know of or may have heard of the phrase the first five. So we know that those are not calculator questions, or if you may know that those are not calculator questions. So approximately 40 out of the 45 questions are what I would refer to as calculator questions. 40 out of the 45. Now that is 8/9 or about 89% of the test are calculator questions, and meaning you have the calculator for it. Okay, next question. Math GED has approximately 45 questions. How many of them are multiple choice? Now, the answer to this question I actually learned from a webinar that was featuring one of the test writers for the Math GED test itself. And he was explaining how his team goes about writing GED math questions and what types of questions are on the test, what are the most commonly missed ones. So that's how I learned about this answer to this one. Out of the 45 questions, I'm just going to hit undo a couple times because 40 is once again the answer. About 40 questions are multiple choice. So 40 our calculator questions, 40 multiple choice. So we're going to be using both of those things as rationale for practicing our GED calculator and how we use the calculator in some of the strategies that are coming up. All right. So something that you may hear if you do intend to work with a student on like walking with a student with these calculator skills and like teaching them how to use them is they're going to think that what they're doing is cheating. Well, cheating is cheating is using some kind of unfair advantage. Cheating is like bringing to the test, something that we're not supposed to have on the test. Clearly, it is designed for us to have this marvelous tool on the test. So we are absolutely not cheating. I would say if a student's like, um, you know, if a student comes to you and says, I want to learn how to answer um, quadratic equations, then you could say, great, here's how we do it. And you can use the calculator for it, right? If the student's like, well, I don't want to use the calculator, I want to learn how to do quadratic equations. Okay, but here's the way we're going to do it. Like this is the most efficient way, the most the way that is going to limit the mistakes, as many mistakes as possible. Now, if they're like, well, I want to learn how to do the quadratic formula by hand, great. Then let's go to the formula sheet and use those two formulas on the formula sheet to do it by hand. There's definitely value in that, of course. It feels really good to be able to answer a quadratic formula question by going through the steps, step by step by step. And there is value in that. But I think, you know, maybe think of these questions as like, okay, here's how you do, rather than thinking, okay, let's solve the quadratic formula, the calculator method, maybe consider the calculator, using the calculator tool as the default method, because it's, as you're going to see, I think, a very easy way to do it. Quickly, before I go on, who is this for? This is for anyone. I'm going to give you two quick examples. So I have a student who graduated in the spring. He'd been coming here for about 8 years. He's retirement age, so he's probably upper 50s, lower 60s. I'd say probably, yeah, lower 60s in age. And he was just needing the math GED, and something that I made an effort to share with him how to use the calculator to answer some of these questions, and it got him over the hump of the 144s, and he finally passed and graduated. Now, another example, earlier this school year, like in August, I had a student who's been coming here for about 7 years, but she would pop in for about a month and then vanish for a year. She only needed the math. Okay. But, and she had a passing math ready test, and she would be one of those students. She would come in, her hair's on fire. We sign her up for the test. Maybe she sits down with a teacher for 2 or 3 hours. She takes the test, 144. We don't see her for another year. Now, some of you sitting there, if you're instructors, or you may have students like that. Maybe some people are coming to mind where it's like, oh my gosh, this person's here. We've got to take advantage of this situation. Well, with that second student, she when I used my precious time with her, which amounted to about maybe an hour and a half before she sat down and actually took the math test, I went straight to the calculator because I knew that this would be the most time effective strategy for her. And as after I was showing her some of the tricks I'm going to show you, she's like, "Wait, you can do that? That's it?" And then she made a comment that stuck in my brain. She's like, "That's just like using my phone. I can totally do this." And she crushed the test. And when she sat down and took it, and she's a graduate now. So it's for anyone. It's for anyone. Someone who you may not think of as being especially tech savvy can do this and can do it consistently. Someone who loves their phone, it's, same deal. All right, now last thing here before we go on to some questions or some examples. If you go to our website, myged.org, that's the Campbell County Adult Ed website, and go to the Students tab, you can scroll down a bit, and then you will find a link to the website, which is right over here on this right panel of your screen. I've just got it kind of enlarged a little bit here, but you can find the link directly to this free version of the TI-30XS from that website. You can, and because it is a website, if you're pulling it up on your phone, when you go to the website on your phone, a lot of like if you look down where you can like the share button, the little share icon with the arrow up, usually if you tap on that, there's an option to add the website itself to your home screen. And then what it happens is it basically shows up on your phone's home screen like an app. So when you tap on the little button, it goes directly to the website, but it basically acts kind of almost like it's an app. I've done that with some students as well. Okay. Of course, I will also say, Emily Bosley, she's on the call here too, can help you as an instructor or director to have the license, like the actual TI 30XS license to download and install the official emulator on your computer, which I would recommend doing that because that's going to be the most stable version of it, and it's going to be, of course, ad free. So I definitely I would, reach out to Emily if you're interested in having access to something like this on your classroom computer and you want the official version. Okay. So let's get to the good stuff. All right. So the first section here are going to be some questions that you might already be advising your students to use a calculator on. But I want to just point out maybe a different way that you might be familiar than you might be familiar with. Okay, so what is the value of 2x to the fourth power plus 3x to the third power minus 3x squared plus 7x when x equals -2? And I apologize, some of these questions are fuzzier than others. This one is particularly fuzzy. So it's not your eyes, it's me and the questions I chose. So I apologize for that. Now, some of you may take your calculator, and this is perfectly legit way of doing it, and start typing this whole thing out. 2 parentheses, -2, end parentheses, exponent button, 4, and then on and on and on. Okay. But I want to show you a way that you might not be familiar with for doing this, which is utilizing the store button, STO with an arrow. So what we're going to do is we're going to store -2. So -2, store it. So I click the arrow and we're going to store that. And then right above the store button is the variable button. If you tap on this or push this button repeatedly, you'll see that it cycles through a number of different variables. And the first one that comes up is X. So we're just going to store -2 as X. You can hit clear if you want. It'll remember that. Now we can use X instead of parentheses -2 as we're typing this out. And it just saves a little time. And it also saves the potential of like maybe missing a negative accidentally or something like that as you're typing it in. As I do these, I'm also going to try to point out some common mistakes that I see students making when they're doing these strategies. So we can see there that comes out to be -18 or answer choice B. So something that I've seen before is when students write this out, maybe a very common mistake is like, do I use the minus sign or the negative sign? You only use the negative or like if you use a negative sign, which is below the 3, instead of a minus sign and hit enter. Actually, wait, that gave us a completely wrong answer. You'll either get a completely wrong answer or you'll get what's called like a syntax error. It'll look something like if I put like this, it'll say it's an error. And what that means is that usually what that means is that somewhere in the question you have used a minus sign where you should have used a negative sign. And that's a good example right there of when a negative sign's appropriate. Negative would be appropriate if it's the very first thing you do, or if you're if you're putting something, I don't know what's going on here. I'm sorry. If you're putting something in parentheses like that. Okay. See, I'm teaching a course on calculators here with you, and I still sometimes don't know which buttons I'm pressing. All right, let's go on to the next one. Given f parentheses x equals negative x squared plus 5x minus 1, find f parentheses negative 1. So you algebra teachers out there would know that they're giving us the input here, and all they're asking us to do is to change the input, or the x's, to this actual value of negative 1 and solve it. So let's see what would happen though if we maybe try what's a common pitfall here of this one? Maybe accidentally putting in too many negatives. Maybe we put negative negative 1 and then square it like that, which will actually result in the wrong answer. And I know I'm just isolating this very first part here, negative x squared, but that would result in the wrong answer. The way you would have to type this in manually would be negative parentheses negative 1 squared. Because that way, this way the calculator knows that you're doing negative 1 times negative 1. Otherwise, the calculator will think you're doing 1 times 1 and then multiply it by negative 1 twice. So that's the difference there. And that's a really good tip to know. Like if you have a student who's using calculus, this could be a good one. Like if you're squaring a negative number, you got to put it in parentheses in order for it to come out correct, or else your calculator may tell you it'll follow order of operations to a fault there almost is kind of what happens. But I'm going to go ahead and do the store methods. So I'm going to do negative 1, our input, store it as x, and then I'm going to start typing in a negative x squared plus 5x minus 1, enter, negative 7. See, if I wasn't talking at all, we'd get through all these questions in like 5 minutes, because it's so quick and easy here. All right. Now the next one. Here's another example of these are questions that you might already be advising a student on for advising them to use their calculator, I mean. So another function question. And this time our input value is negative 3. So I'm going to do negative 3, store it as x. And because we have a fraction, I would recommend when you're doing fractions to hit the fraction button first, which is this n over d. And you'll get the two boxes. You'll be able to navigate up and down and left and right using your arrows. I would recommend hitting that fraction button first, and then we can start typing in 2x, because remember we stored negative 3 as x, so 2x minus 4, arrow down, 8 minus x squared, and then arrow to the right if you want, or you don't have to. The answer there, 10. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. Those are our 3 warm-up questions before we get into what I consider to be the really, really important ones that I want you to feel comfortable with. But we did utilize maybe some new things there that you hadn't been familiar with, especially the store button. But do we have any questions?
I don't see anything in the chat so far, but
Okay,
folks, feel free at any time to put them in the chat, and we will make sure that they either get addressed one way or another.
awesome. Okay. Now, this next section is what I call the 144 busters, because these are the types of questions that, sometimes if as a math teacher, you're teaching math, you have your students that are like, they've passed the ready test, with 150 plus or whatever. Maybe you haven't done quadratics yet with them, but of course, we don't need to get every single question right in order to pass the test. And that's absolutely true. And a totally legitimate strategy to make sure our students have enough time on the test is to flag the questions they're not sure about. Maybe make a guess if they're comfortable with that, but make a guess, flag it, come back to it at the end with whatever time they have left, and save their time for the questions that they really know how to do. And that is totally a valid strategy. I continue to recommend that strategy to my students. And but this is a type of question that maybe would fall under that category historically for you, and I know it has for me, because teaching the quadratic by hand is just it takes some time. And so, but I want to share with you how you can kind of flip that narrative in your mind and consider this to be a question that the student knows how to do. And they're going to be able to do this question using their calculator in many times in under a minute. So you can use your calculator to solve any equation on the GED. Any equation. Anytime you see an equal sign where there is a left side and a right side of that equation, and you are asked to solve for it. In other words, which number makes this equation true? Or yeah, or even inequalities. Which number range makes this equation statement true? Any equation you can solve with your GED calculator. I don't care how difficult or easy. So here we have an equation. It's a quadratic equation, which just means that there's two answers to it, up to two. A quadratic equation, the definition of a quadratic is that it's an equation that has a term to the second degree, meaning there's an x in it with x squared and being squared. That's all that word means. And what it does, what it also kind of plays out to be is that there's up to two answers possible. So here's our new favorite button, okay? And we're about 20 minutes into the presentation. This is what I want you to know, okay? Is the table button. Table button. The table button is the star of this show. And I apologize, table button, for taking 20 minutes to get to you, but that is the button I want you to come away with this presentation knowing that that exists there, the table button. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our table button to solve any equation on the test. When you first hit table, you're probably going to see this, y equals, and then says enter function in x. Um, if we're looking at our equation, okay, and on one side of the equation, there's a number there, a plain old number, like in this case, it's the number 5. I call that a searchable number. We have a searchable number over there, 5. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take in our table button, we're going to type in the other side of this equation, just as you see it. So enter function in x, here we go. We're going to do x squared plus 2x minus 3. And notice I'm using the variable button there to the left of 4 to do that. Now, next, enter. All of these default settings will work for you a vast majority of the time, specifically when the answers are whole numbers, positive or negative. Okay, so we hit enter, 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 and now we get to the table part of it. What are we looking for, or what are we searching for? We are searching for the number 5 in this case, that's our searchable number, in the Y column. That's what we're searching for. So here I've already found one of the 5s, meaning when x is 2, y, or the output, is 5. When x is 2, y equals 5. So that makes 2 one of the answers, positive 2. Now looking at my answer choices here, there's only one of them that has positive 2 as an option. So already we know that the answer there has got to be C. But just to demonstrate that there's two answers, I should be able to use my arrow buttons here on the calculator to go up and down. And I should find that the other 5, my other 5 here in the table, is when x is equal to -4. So let's find out. I'm going to go up, 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 and you'll see I go into the negatives. There's x is -4, and boom, right there is 5 for the other. That's the other instance of 5. So when x is -4, the answer or the output is 5. When x is 2, the output is 5. So that means -4 and 2 are the answers there. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. All right, here's another one. Now this time I'm going to go a little bit faster so you can see what it looks like maybe a little bit closer to real time. So I'm going to clear on out of everything. Okay, I'm going to hit table. If you're following along with your own calculator, after you clear everything out and you come across this in table, you'll notice your previous equation's still in there. Just hit clear one time, just like that, just one time. If you hit clear twice, it'll bring you back to the main screen and you'll have to go to table again and it'll be like, wait, I just thought I just cleared that. So just hit clear one time. So it says y equals. All right, let's look at our question. Solve x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. So we have an equation, boom. We have a searchable number, 0. So we are good to go. What do we put in our calculator? X squared minus 3x minus 10 under the table button. X squared minus 3x minus 10. Okay, enter. Do we have to change any settings? Well, all the answers are whole number answers here, so no, we don't. All right, now let's clean this up a little bit. And, oops, sorry. All right, so we are searching now for what number? We're searching for 0 in the y column. Squared minus 3x minus 10. Okay, so 0 right there. Okay, so one of the zeros is at x equals -2. X equals -2. That looks like it's enough info to already rule out, already do process of elimination. And we can see though that the other 0 is when x is 5. So answer choice A is our answer there. All right. So there you go. That's all there is. That's solving a quadratic, and that's using the tool that they give you to do it. And as you can see, it can take 30 seconds to do it. Now what about, sorry, did we do this? No, we didn't do this one. I'm so sorry. I got a little bit distracted there for a minute. I don't think we did this one. I think I skipped this one. I'm going to go back to table and hit clear one time. I'm going to do x squared plus 3x minus 10. We're going to search for 0 on the y side. So I'm going to go up and down. Oh, there's one of them. So one of my answers is +2. Looking down here, I only see one +2. So my answer here is B. And I can double check that the other one's at -5, which it is. So that is using, that's kind of crazy. Was I think that was similar to another answer, sorry. So yeah, that is using your calculator to solve a quadratic equation. And many times these questions show up on your student's ready test looking just like this. There's no other instructions. It just says solve, and then it gives the quadratic, and then it provides two answers, A, B, C, and D for each one. And so kind of get into the mindset of like, okay, when you see that, this is what you do. Bust out that calculator and go for it. Okay. And right there, that's going to be at least one, maybe two questions on the GED test that your student is now able to get correct and quickly. They'll be able to do it very quickly. Okay, so before I move on to the next section, do we have any questions?
Nothing at time present.
Okay, cool. All right, half an hour in, let's keep going. All right, now the next section here, we're going to be looking at a little bit more crazier looking questions, wild questions like inequalities and such, or equations maybe with x on both sides of the equation. So what about this one? Well, they're asking us to do a compound inequality here, but really, let's just kind of focus on this part of it. Okay, this 1/2 x plus 4 is less than or equal to 6. Because really, our answers down here are all different. So I just kind of wanted to use this question to show how you can also do this for normal equations, any equation or any inequality. So we're going to type in this part of our inequality of the question into our calculator. So I'm going to go to table, hit clear once. Okay, now think of this inequality symbol as if it was an equal sign. So we have a left side and we have a right side. We have a searchable number, 6, on our right side. And our answers down here are whole numbers. So we have everything that we need. Okay, we got a left side and a right side. We've got this searchable number 6 over here. That's the main thing. Okay, so fraction button. 1, that's not 1. 1, 2, arrow to the right, x, just normal x, plus 4. Enter. Answers are whole numbers, so we can leave everything on default, and we are searching for 6 on the y side. And there's 6. So when x is 4, y equals 6. That is the only 4 I see on that part of on x is less than 4, so A has got to be the answer here. We could also double check it though by doing this one, this side of it. All right, so here's an example of, we have to think of this as an equal sign. So it's like an equation, but this time our searchable number, -2, is like to the left of the equation. It's okay. Still go back to our table. We don't have to change anything because we would have normally put in this right here, 1/2 x plus 4. And so we don't have to change anything on the calculator. This time we're just looking for -2 on the um, -2 on the right side, on the y side. Okay, so there it is. Y equals -2, x is 12, -12. So that just confirms that we have -12 there and 4 right there. So you can use, yes, James.
So I know that this works for this problem right here, but I
Mhm.
also know that if we were to change the problem completely and just make it a different problem, use the old whiteout method, if you will, and that 1/2 and make it -1/2, I
Mm,
know that the traditional method, big air quotes there, means that you have to flip the direction of the inequality signs.
mhm.
And so I am hoping, I'm anticipating that you have a problem like this later on in the presentation. And if that's the case, then just say we will get there. But how does this work for a situation like that? Is it exactly the same or is there a
Yeah,
nuance?
exactly the same. Thank you, James, that's a great question. I really appreciate that. And some of you out there may have been thinking that too. So what I just did real quick was I inserted a negative sign right there in front of it. And let's just see. I don't know if I'll be able to find, say, like +6. Looks like I will be. Okay. So right here's 6. Okay, so we have -1/2 x plus 4. So here's our 6 right here. So that means that one of the answers is -4. Um, and then we would do the same. So James, I think, maybe what you're thinking of too is like, is there a way to distinguish greater than or less than? Because in some cases you can just use that kind of information right there to go through the answer choices and pick the right one. But sometimes maybe they won't distinguish. It won't be that like one of the answers will be like greater than -4 and the other one will be like less than -4. And the answer is yes. I have an example coming up that is like that. So let me just go ahead and continue forward. Okay, I want to get to this one next though. Here we have an equation that has an x on both sides of the equal sign. So far, we've done equations where there has been a searchable number, like 0 or 6 or 4. Here, there is no single searchable number because One side of the equation has x's, and so does the other side of the equation. Now, it seems like we might hit an impasse here, but we have a strategy. There's something that we can do, okay? Here's what we basically are going to do to tackle this. We are going to create a searchable number, and we're going to create it in a consistent way, exactly the same method each and every time this happens. So we have an equation here with an x on both sides. So what do? Well, we're going to start off by typing in the left side of the equation just as you see it in the table button, under table in the calculator. So I hit table there, I cleared it out, I got y equals, and you can do this along with me if you'd like. We're going to do the left side of the equation just as you see it. So 3, including the x, 3x plus 8. Now the next thing we're going to do is do minus. After that, parentheses. Then everything in on the right side of the equation comes next. So the right side is 4 times the quantity 6 minus x. So you're just going to type in now the right side exactly as you see it. 4 parentheses x, 6 minus x, like that. And then we close out the parentheses. So some of you that might be kind of thinking through that game plan, what have we just done there? We've basically taken everything that was in the right side of the equation and it's almost like we put it in a box and we moved it over to the left side of the equation. So you know how you can add, subtract the same thing to both sides of an equation? Well, we just basically subtracted the right side entirely from both sides of the equation. And what does that leave on the right side of the equation? Nothing, or 0. So that's how we're going to create a searchable number for ourselves. Same way, you can do exact same way every single time. So I'm going to hit enter, 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 enter. Now, here's a curious one too, because our answers include some fractions. Now, I don't know what the answer to this is ahead of time. If it's not, well, here, actually, you know what? I'm actually gonna use this as a good opportunity to share with you the other settings. If you have an answer choices that are fractions, then when you get to the second page of table, like you have your equation, you hit enter. Now we're on the second page of table. Change it to ask x. So use your arrows to hover over ask x, hit enter. That'll change it to that mode. And now what it's going to have you do is it's going to have you type in the answer choices. So I'm going to test out, say, like answer choice A, -16. I'm just going to literally start typing that. Negative with the negative symbol, 16. Enter. Okay. Well, that's not our answer because we're looking for 0 over here. When x is -16, the outcome is -128. That's not what we want. Okay, so it's not A. Next one. 16 over 7. 16 fraction bar or fraction button 7. Enter. 0. Okay, there's our answer. So the answer is 16 over 7. And we don't have to move on to go and test the other ones. So this method of doing it, this setting, I should say, the setting of ask X, as you kind of practice this yourself and get comfortable with it and preparing to teach students, I would actually recommend that you change it to the ask X mode if if your answer choice, if your question is a multiple choice question. So if you have multiple choices for whatever question it is that you're doing, whether it's quadratic or any other equation, if it's a multiple choice, if it has multiple choices, then I would recommend changing it to ask X mode and then just test out the answers one at a time, like that. Okay, let's do one more that kind of like this, same type of example. So we have a so we have an equation here, of course, a left side and a right side, but is there a searchable number? on either side? No, there's no searchable number because we have an x on both sides of the equation. So this is where we're going to bust out our method of doing the left side minus parentheses right side. And what that'll create for us is the searchable number 0. So let's do it. So we got our table button here, tap on table, hit clear. And maybe if you didn't have a chance to follow along on the last one, you can follow along on this one. So we're going to do the left side, 3 parentheses, just as you see it, x plus 2, end parentheses, minus parentheses. Okay, so really want to highlight that part, minus parentheses. Gotta have that there. Okay, minus parentheses, and then everything on the right side, 2 parentheses, 2 minus x. Now, if you can kind of get kind of lazy with it if you want to, or your students could. We don't really have to put this other parentheses there because the calculator is smart enough. I could hit enter and it'll be happy with it. You can if you want to, but don't worry about like, do I put the correct number of right parentheses? It's not going to change the outcome. Let's keep it on Ask X mode. I'm going to keep it that way from now on for all the multiple choice questions. Now I have my other uh, answers in here from the previous question. I'm going to use the arrow buttons, highlight that answer and hit delete, not the clear button, but delete, and it will delete it out of there. Okay, so let's test out answer choice A of -2, answer choice A. And if A is the correct answer, what should I see over there? Over here on the Y side, I should see 0, and I don't. Okay, -8. So it's not -2. Let's try out -2/5. -2 parentheses fifth or 5. Now, if this is the correct answer, what should I see over there? 0, and there it is. Okay, cool. So B is the correct answer. All right. If any of you have, as math instructors or curious minds, if any of you have taken the Math GED tests, or maybe all of the versions of the Math GED, not the GED test, the Ready test, I apologize. If any of you have taken the Math Ready test, don't we wish we could take the GED? You might notice this question, or remember a question like this. This question is actually pulled directly from one of the Ready tests. So these are, I chose questions to feature here that are either coming from the Ready test or look very similar to ones like the Ready test. Okay, so I'm going to actually skip this one and go on to the next one, speaking of Ready test, because this one is also on the Ready test. And some of you out there might have been like, that question is just, just skip it and move, guess and move on. And this also gets to what James was saying earlier about inequalities and having to remember that special rule of like flipping the direction of the inequality symbol. All right, but let's get going. So the inequality symbol, think of that as your equal sign. Do we have a searchable number? No. We have an X on both sides of this inequality. So let's start typing this sucker in following our structure, our strategy of everything on the left side, -3 parentheses 4x minus 8.2, whoops, 8.2 minus parentheses -11.98 x plus, now we got 14 and 3/4 here. There's actually a button on here on the calculator that lets you do mixed numbers. It's the secondary function of the fraction button. So I'm going to do that, secondary fraction button. And we have these 3 boxes now. So let's go ahead and type in 14, arrow over, 3, 4, parentheses. So everything on the left side minus parentheses, everything on the right side, enter. We have multiple choices, so I'm just going to leave it on Ask X mode. I'm going to hit delete, delete to get a clean slate there. Now, what's my next strategy? Well, same as always. I'm going to use the numbers they give us, like in this case, 49.25, and I'm going to type that in, 49.25. Now, if that is the correct answer, I should get 0 on the other side, which I don't. So immediately we can rule out A and B. So it's got to be 492.5. It's got to be. And it is. Okay. So we could stop there and you could instruct your students to take, that minute to type it in and at least get themselves down to a 50-50 chance. But let's not do, let's go a step further than that. Okay. How do we know if it's less than or if it's greater than? There's one extra step we got to do. Now, if you think back to the way that we typed this in, we did the left side minus parentheses, the right side is equal to 0. Well, in this case, it was less than 0, like that. So I think I can make this a little bigger, maybe not. I'm sorry if that's kind of small there. So we wanted our answer, our final answer should be ultimately something that produces 0, or in this case, something that is less than 0. So we found the number that gave us 0 exactly. That let us get down to either C or D. But how do we tell if it's less than, or, which answer, C or D? Well, we pick one of them to test out. So let's just pick out answer choice C, and we're going to test out this answer choice C. And what does answer choice C say? It says X are the answers to this question have got to be less than 492.5. So pick out a number that is smaller than 492.5. Any number that is smaller than 492.5. So again, we are testing answer choice C by pick a number. In this case, it says 492 and it's less than symbol, so less than 492.5. I'm just going to pick 0. Okay. I'm going to go to my calculator. Zero's certainly less than 492.5. Now, what happens when I hit enter on my calculator here? If I get an answer on my calculator that is less than 0, okay, because that, from this part of the equation, then then C is the correct answer. Maybe I'm gonna pick a number other than 0. I'm gonna pick X equals 10, okay? Just to avoid any confusion there. 10 is less than 492.5. So when I hit enter here, if I get an answer on the right side that is less than 0, then I've found my correct answer. But I get positive 9.65. So that means that C is not the correct answer because 9.65 is not less than 0. See how that works? So that means that D has got to be the correct answer. So I know that that was kind of a little bit, kind of a mouthful there to do that one extra step with inequalities, but that is really all it is one extra step. And to kind of demonstrate that with another example, because I think we'll have enough time for this. Let's go back a question and do it with this one. Yeah, Trisha.
I just have a question. So on that last inequality, is it because there was a negative and we had to flip the sign? Is that why D? Can we just explain it like that?
Unfortunately, I love you,
It's
Trisha.
not easy,
Um,
Stephen.
if you guys don't realize, Trisha and I work together. So, unfortunately, it's not that easy. We can't always depend on it that way. Um, at least not to my knowledge. I don't think because I've thought it that way before, and I don't think that's possible. So, but thank you for asking. So here's another kind of walkthrough of that same type of question, but I'm just going to go a little bit faster. Do we have a searchable number here? No. We want to treat our less than symbol like it's the equal sign. Okay, so we're going to do our left side 3/2 minus 4. Okay, that's our left side. Minus parentheses our right side. Left side minus parentheses right side. So the right side is, again, fraction.
Stephen, put your
2.
X after 3/2.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Now, I could hit clear and redo all of that, or I could go back to this and do secondary function on delete. It'll change it to insert. And there's my X. Thank you so much for whoever, I didn't get to see who that was that chimed in there. I appreciate that. But you can insert something like that rather than having to start all over again. Okay, let's keep on going. +2, enter. We're going to keep it on ask mode. Now I'm going to clear all this stuff out here so it's nice and clean. And let's start testing our answers. So first one is -5, fraction 36, -5 over 36. That did not give us 0. So let's do the next one, +5 over 36, answer choice B. That did not give us 0. Okay, so let's try out C, -36 fraction 5. That did not give us 0, but something closer. So it's got to be D, but let's go ahead and test it. 36 fraction 5, and there's your 0. Okay, so that answer choice was 0. Now, I want to pretend for a moment, though, that this was maybe answer choice C was X is greater than 36 over 5. And answer choice D was X is less than 36 over 5. So let's just kind of play that game for a minute. How do we know if it's going to be the answer that is less than 36 over 5 or greater than? Which one? How do we know that? Well, again, going back to how we originally set this question up, we did the left side minus the right side, left side minus the right side, and then we had a less than symbol in the original question, and we created 0 as the searchable number. So let's test out answer choice C. Let's look at what happens when we pick a number that, or if we were to test out this answer here. Let's pick a number that is greater than 36 over 5. I'm just going to exaggerate it. I'm going to pick out something like 1,000. Okay, just to prove a point. So maybe let's test out like 1,000. Okay, so I'm going to type in 1,000. Now when I hit enter, if that is the correct answer choice, X is greater than 36 over 5. If that is correct, then my outcome over here has got to be what? It's got to be less than 0. But it's a positive number. So that is not the correct answer choice. It's got to be D. Now, just to go again to kind of test it out, let's test out a number. Let's test out answer choice D. Let's pick a number smaller than 36 over 5. Like, let's say any negative number, -5. Okay, -5. That's smaller than positive 36 over 5. When I hit enter, what do I expect to see? I expect to see on the right side of my table something that is smaller or less than 0. And here you have it, -61 over 6. So that confirms that D is the correct answer. Okay, so where have we come so far? What have we been able to do so far? We've been able to show how you can use your calculator to store variables, right? To avoid potential mistakes with negatives. We've done use the table button to solve quadratic equations quickly and consistently. We've also used the table button to solve equations with variables on both sides and inequalities with variables on both sides, where the inequalities requires that one extra step of testing out your final answer. And then if there are variables on both sides, then you have to do the left side minus right side thing. But that is it. Okay, that's really what I wanted to share with you today. I have some other examples. I have some extra bonus questions. I believe you all should be getting a copy of this slideshow, so you can take a look at these other bonus questions. But that is including how to solve this one. But we're running a little low on time, and I want to make sure that I honor your all's time here. And I am certainly willing to stay on after 1 o'clock if any of you have any other questions. But I just want to kind of wrap up and then do any final questions. So when you're trying, first of all, if you want to do this in your classroom and you're looking for questions to practice with your students and you're going online, try to find multiple choice questions when you're searching online, because that's the best way of representing it. Because after all, 40 out of the 45 questions are multiple choice. To solve any equation using the table button, you're going to follow that structure. Left side of the equation minus parentheses, right side of the equation equals 0. Um, when you're looking at when you're going into the settings of the table button, you would want to use the auto setting, automatic setting, which is default. When you're trying to find the answers, that's when you're like scrolling up and down with your arrow button and you're like searching for that 0, literally trying to find it. But you would use Ask X mode for when you are testing your answers. So therefore, if it's a multiple choice question, use Ask X. And if it's a fill in the blank question, you're going to have to use auto. Okay, so that leaves very little time for any questions. And again, I apologize for that. I was telling James and Vicky earlier, like, man, I don't know if I might get done with this quickly or too quickly, but of course, this always happens. I should know. So, James, any last questions from the gallery there?
Stephen, I don't see anything on my last look. I
Okay,
see some people saying thank you for having this, that
of
they really
course.
appreciate how hands-on this was and that they've learned a lot.
Oh,
And so
good.
from the Academy, Stephen, thank you for coming out and showing the LP in these things. I hope that everybody who needs this video finds it on their desk at some point.
Excellent. You're absolutely so welcome. I'm so happy to be here and do this.
Yeah.
And you have my contact information there, my email, and our website. On our website, there are some videos that feature going through calculator strategies on it, but also, if you're looking through the slideshow and you're like, how did Stephen do that again? Or maybe you were curious how to do one of those extra questions that we didn't get time to go into today, please email me. Please always feel free to email me. I'd be happy to either set up a Zoom with you or go through it, answer it over email or something like that.
Steven, not to cut your legs out from under you, but I'm seeing some people in the chat saying, thank you, we need a part two. I would like to see this specific problem type and this specific problem type. So I'm not doing this to undermine or
Sweet.
undercut what you're doing because I think that we can get this on the docket and that this would be a great thing to run a sequel of. But
Yeah.
just in case, for whatever reason, a meteor strikes and we don't get to do this for whatever reason, we're still taking GED tests in this hypothetical, but we're not able to do a second one of these. The trick is that all the problem types are if you're using your calculator in this way, they're practically, with few exceptions, the same. That they all are hitting on that the basis of functional reasoning. What you're getting your students to do is understanding that they are evaluating a function, but instead of doing the arithmetic by hand, they're having the computer do it. They're still the ones doing the problem solving, whether it's a quadratic formula, whether it's fractions. They look differently, but really it's all the same. Am I understanding the heart of this lesson correctly?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think a strategy that you can teach your students is like identifying which types of questions where this tool could really help.
Hmm.
And like that particular type of question is anything with an equal sign and a left and right side, and you're solving to figure out what makes it true.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. Folks, we will see about getting this a sequel put on. I would say maybe February. But we'll see how the tides turn. We'll get in touch with Steven and deliver that part two. But thank you guys all for coming. Big crowds. The number was hard to keep up with as it went
Oh,
on,
good.
but I just want to say, everybody, please thank Steven once again for coming out, because I know this is something that y'all have been asking for, and I just have not provided it yet. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate all of you